What do you think would happen if one day you simply left? I'm not talking about physically disappearing, but about disconnecting, letting go of those invisible threads that tie you to others. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you decided to step away, not out of hatred, not out of resentment, but simply out of the need to be with yourself? Most people don't understand it, but distance has a strange, almost unsettling power. It's as if moving out of their orbit breaks a delicate balance, one they never realized was there. It's not just about missing you. It goes beyond that. It's something much darker, deeper, something that touches their most sensitive places. Because when you decide to step away, you leave a void. And voids are always uncomfortable, not because of what's missing, but because of what they reveal. And here's the intriguing part. Your absence doesn't hurt because of who you were to them. It hurts because of what they can no longer project onto you. Make no mistake, people don't always see you as you are. They see you as they need you to be. You are the mirror in which they reflect their insecurities, their hidden desires, their expectations. And when you decide to step away, they aren't left looking at the space you left behind. They're left confronting the shattered reflection they once saw in you. Think about it. How many times have you been told, "You're important, need you, I couldn't do this without you"? But deep down, isn't it curious how those words always seem to be more about them than about you? When you distance yourself, you shatter that illusion, and suddenly they begin to feel something they can't quite explain: discomfort, anger, guilt, fear. But most of all, there's a question they don't dare to ask. What's left of me if you're no longer there? It's unsettling, isn't it, to think that someone might depend on you, not out of love, not out of a genuine connection, but because you were the support for something they didn't want to face in themselves. And yet, that is the reality of many human relationships. We are mirrors, but we are also crutches. When you decide to let go, when you decide to step away, you force others to wobble, to face a truth they were trying so hard to ignore. Their emotional dependence wasn't on you, but on the idea of you. And then comes the real mystery. What do they actually feel when you're no longer there? Some will say sadness, others disappointment. Some might even fill themselves with resentment. But the truth is, they don't really know, because the void you leave has no shape. It's not a pain they can easily identify. It's not a wound they can heal. It's something more visceral, more primal. It's the echo of what they never wanted to admit. What goes on in their minds? When you decide to leave, what shadows do you awaken in them? And more importantly, why does that decision to step away seem to hold so much power? Why does it create so much noise in their souls? Today, we're not going to talk about the easy stuff. We're not staying on the surface. We're going to explore what really happens when you decide to step away, what others feel, what they don't dare to say, what they try to hide, and above all, why that act, which seems so simple, has the ability to lay bare the darkest corners of their psychology. Get ready, because this won't be a comfortable journey. There are no easy answers here, no truths that won't make you uneasy. This is a journey into the depths of human emotion, into the places most people prefer to avoid. But if you're here, it's because something within you already knows. Stepping away doesn't just transform your life, it shakes the world of those who don't know how to exist without you. And that is the real mystery we're going to unravel. When you decide to step away, something curious happens. People start to reconstruct a narrative about you, but that narrative isn't about who you really are. It's about who you were in their lives. And more importantly, it's about what they lose with your absence. It's as if they try to fill the void with versions of you that you don't even recognize. They begin to interpret you, analyze you all from afar, looking for signs, patterns, anything to help them explain your decision. But here's the trick. What they're really seeking isn't to understand you, it's to justify themselves. Your absence forces them to confront a question they never wanted to ask. How much of my emotional stability depended on this person? And that question, for many, is unbearable, because in their quest to project strength, independence, and self-sufficiency. They are forced to acknowledge something deeply human, but also deeply uncomfortable. They depended on you more than they were willing to admit, and you know what happens next. They start to transform their perception of you. Not because you've changed, but because they need to construct a version of your departure that's bearable for them. Some idealize you as if your absence makes you more valuable than you already were. Others demonize you, convincing themselves that your leaving was a selfish act, even a betrayal, because deep down, it's easier to blame you than to admit that your decision destabilized them. The fascinating part is how these emotions don't emerge uniformly. People react in completely different ways, depending on what you represented in their lives. For some, your absence is like an open wound. For others, it's a wound they thought had healed, but your distance reopens it. And for a few, it's a mirror reflecting their greatest fear, being alone with themselves. This is where the real complexity lies. It's not just that others react, it's how those reactions change over time. At first, there may be anger or confusion, but as time passes, the absence becomes much more abstract. They begin to wonder if they ever really knew you, or if they were simply projecting onto you what they wanted to see. And that doubt is what can consume them. Because your departure isn't just physical, it's symbolic. It represents a change in a dynamic they didn't control. And loss of control always generates anxiety. You know what's most ironic? Many times, people don't even understand why your decision affects them so much. In their minds, you weren't that crucial. You didn't occupy such a big place. But your departure reveals that you occupied far more space than they were ever willing to admit. It's as if your absence illuminates the cracks in their emotional structure, the ones they worked so hard to hide. And what they feel isn't about you. It's about what your distance forces them to confront. There's something profoundly unsettling about how your stepping away can become a trial by fire for the relationships you leave behind. Often, your absence lays bare an uncomfortable truth that many human connections aren't based on unconditional love or mutual respect, but on convenience, power dynamics, and unspoken needs. And when you decide to break those dynamics, people don't just lose a person, they lose a support system, a point of reference, a balance you unknowingly helped maintain. And here comes the question no one wants to ask. What's left of them when you're no longer there? For some, the answer is simple. They move on. They find new connections. They adapt. But for others, your departure leaves a void they don't know how to fill. Because your presence had become the anchor for something much bigger. And when that anchor is gone, things start to crumble. Slowly, quietly, and sometimes without them even realizing it, until it's too late. Here's the most fascinating part. In the end, this experience impacts both sides. It's not just they who feel your absence. You feel it too. Because the act of stepping away isn't simple. It's not just physical distance or emotional detachment. It's an act of courage. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I need space for myself. Even if it means others won't understand. And even if it means they'll resent you for it. And that, though necessary, can be terrifying. But here's where I want to pause for a moment. Because if you've made it this far, something about this resonates with you. Maybe you've stepped away from someone. Maybe you felt something crumble around you because of that decision. Or maybe someone stepped away from you, and you're still trying to understand why. Whatever your situation is, I want you to reflect on this. How much of your inner peace depends on others? How much of your identity is tied to the way they see you? And how much are you willing to let go to find peace that comes from within? Say these words or write them down. The void doesn't define me, it frees me. Let that be your reminder that sometimes what looks like emptiness is the space where something new, something stronger begins. Because sometimes the greatest act of love isn't staying. It's not sacrificing yourself to hold others together. It's stepping away so they can find their own strength. And yes, it might hurt them at first. They might feel abandoned. They might blame you. They might twist your leaving into something cruel, something selfish. But one day some of them will understand. Maybe not all of them. Maybe not soon. But one day they'll see it. Your absence was their opportunity to grow. And even if they never realize it, you will know, because you'll be able to look back and see how much you needed to let go to find yourself again. And this is where things shift. Because the act of stepping away doesn't just change their life, it changes yours. When you give yourself space, you create the silence needed to hear your own voice again, the space to feel your own emotions without being crowded by the weight of everyone else's needs. You stop carrying their projections, their fears, their insecurities. You stop being who they need you to be, and you start being who you truly are. And it's not easy. Silence can be deafening. Distance can feel like exile. But in that quiet, you will remember yourself. You will remember that you were never just a reflection of their needs. You were never just a role they cast you in. You were always more. And it's in that space that you become whole again. Now here's the irony. While they're rebuilding their world without you, you are rebuilding yours. And this process, this healing, doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you distant. It makes you clear. Clear on who you are. Clear on what you want. Clear on who gets to stand beside you, not because they need you, but because they respect you. And suddenly, the connections you form going forward aren't built on dependency. They're built on truth, on mutual understanding, on real, grounded love, not survival. And that is the gift of stepping away. It breaks what needed to be broken. It exposes what needed to be seen. And it sets both of you free, even if the process isn't pretty. So I want you to think about this. What if stepping away isn't the end? What if it's the beginning? The beginning of a deeper relationship with yourself. The beginning of new connections built on authenticity. The beginning of their growth, even if they don't see it yet. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you both needed all along. Now, if this message resonated with you, leave a comment below and write, "I am reclaiming my space." Let that be your declaration that you're no longer filling roles, no longer carrying weight that isn't yours, no longer being the mirror for anyone's avoidance. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, because here we explore the uncomfortable truths, the hidden corners of the mind, the places people avoid, but where transformation begins. And I'll leave you with this. Your decision to step away, while painful for some, might be the greatest gift you'll ever give them. Because sometimes the best way to help someone is to stop being their crutch and show them they can stand on their own. And in doing that, you don't just set them free, you free yourself. This isn't just reflection, it's revelation. And if you embrace it, it will change the way you see your relationships, your decisions, and above all, yourself.